The list that I'm putting together here, it doesn't really have an order, and there's even characters on it that I don't even know really, but I've been in contact with them, so that's why they are on the list. And it is basically based on street scrapping abilities, whether it's on Earth or up in the sky, or maybe in the lower part of space. You know, so like this is tough guy fights. This is not Nightcrawler fight. This is tough guys. You know, like this is not Cyclops fight. This is tough guy fight. You know, so that's what we're discussing here. First off, going to start off with somebody that we all know for sure, She-Hulk. I'd always wondered what would happen if a Hulk fought Superman. I guess we can all agree that Superman would beat She-Hulk, because she does lack that gauge where she just like clicks into autopilot going on a death threat massacre. She-Hulk can't do that. Scar, Hulk's son, he really doesn't tap into that megalomania level of killing. Now we have Hulk. That's one thing that I hope I could find. It's possible it's been done, but I've looked for it before. But just like maybe like a 4-part, 4-book fight, having the Hulk, who's the world breaker, with Superman, who would also be a world breaker as well. But you will notice that Superman had problems fighting General Zod, and for some reason I cannot picture Hulk having problems fighting General Zod. So this will be unpopular, but based on that, I'm gonna say the Hulk World Breaker could beat Superman, which then means if Doomsday had to fight Hulk, well, Doomsday killed Superman, so that gets lit up even harder. So who would win between Doomsday and Hulk? To be honest, I have no clue, because both of them are absolute savages of nature. But feel free to comment if you have a disagreeing thought about who would win, Doomsday or Hulk. The next person that I want to discuss is a character that really never got a lot of time put into him. The Blob. Nothing can stop the Blob. He's incredibly obese, which would also mean that he's incredibly strong, plus he is a mutant. So the Blob would be a definite threat. Now, what would happen if Superman fought the Blob? I don't think we've ever seen the Blob really take on any seriously death-threatening opponents. The Blob tends to just be part of a group. What is it? The Marauders? I can't remember, because he never seems to get his own title. What's wrong with Blob? Blob would be cool, actually. But him and guys like Toad never get their own titles. It's kind of a bit of a shame. Versus Superman, the Blob would easily take him down. I don't think he has anything extra in him except most likely a healing factor, and the fact that he's very obese, and he would have a hell of a punch. But if you were to put Superman versus the Blob, I'm pretty sure that Superman would be able to defeat him. I'm sure the Blob would get in a few good hard punches and hits, but Superman would easily beat the Blob. Nothing can stop the Blob. And that's all I really have to say about him, is because he never seems to have gotten his payback, his solo shot. Maybe just like a 4-issue limited series, because it would be cool to learn about what the blog is more about. But there you go. Superman would defeat the Blob, that's for sure. But due to the fact that the Blob could even fight him means that he's extra dangerous and extra skilled at fighting. That's the Blob. Rolling up next, we're going to talk about Colossus. And how strong is Colossus? I mean, he's covered in some kind of metallic human tissue, which is kind of interesting because Wolverine and a few others are covered in adamantium or vibranium, but that's inside their body. I've actually read before that if Wolverine attacked Colossus with one strike, it wouldn't be strong enough to pierce his armor because it's constantly healing as well. So who would win between Colossus and Wolverine? I'm not going to say what I think because people just get all baby about it. Fine, of course it would be Wolverine. I actually don't believe that, just so you know. But no, I actually think Colossus would pound him to death. Even if he can use his healing factor to come back alive. One thing that bothers me about Wolverine is the fact that over the years, it went from being a thing that made him like deep cut proof to he can have his whole entire body covered in vibranium or just like burned alive till there's nothing left except bones, and somehow Wolverine can still heal. That's nonsense. So what would happen if Wolverine fought So as I'm concerned, the fact of the matter is that Colossus could beat Wolverine. I'm 1,000% sure on that. It doesn't matter who writes it. So what would happen if Superman had to fight Colossus? Because Colossus is covered in healing organic steel. I can't remember what they called it, but he's coated in organic steel. Superman, though, can also fly. Colossus can't fly. Superman can also shoot lasers going down like 1,000 feet. And let's see how long it takes for Colossus to fry. Superman can also breathe freezing breath. Freezing breath, so he could actually take the metal, make it so cold that he could punch him one time and all of his fake metal skin would just make him completely collapse, hopefully not die. And yes, I am using DC and Marvel characters just because it's kind of cool to see what happens if you kind of stick that all together. So yeah, so Colossus would definitely lose against Superman. Absolutely. But it would be a fantastic book to read. Now I have to talk about a superhero / anti-hero called Hyperion. Hyperion was designed many years ago in 1968, 1969 in order to kind of like create an evil Superman character. And he lived up to it. And his costume's pretty fantastic as well. I've read about him quite a bit. The issue is that he's been relaunched so many times with so many names. One part being a villain, one part being a rogue, one part being a hero. So it's difficult to kind of isolate how strong this guy is. But judging by the fact that his existence is based on being an evil villain to fight Superman, Hyperion, with his cool costume, that makes a lot of sense because all great heroes need a great villain. However, with him, they tend to fluctuate between making him a villain or making him a good guy. And that's also cool because we all love the redemption hierarchy, and when people just crash into the earth, and they lose. So he has a lot of great characteristics, all based around basically being a evil or neutral version of Superman. In 2003, Marvel Comics launched Supreme Power. It was a new take on the Squadron Supreme universe where Hyperion is raised by the United States government to be a superpowered operative. That reminds me a whole lot of Homelander from The Boys. And that is a good part to put into his background, even to start from there. Because I said, in 2003, the government made him. And don't we all love Homelander? Because it's impossible not to. And Hyperion's got a cool name. I really feel that they're slacking on putting this guy in some better titles. He actually was supposed to be an Avenger like 35 years ago, but it never happened. I don't know why they seem to hate him, but he's Marvel though. So the guys that made him were basically just like looking at Superman and said, well, what if Superman was bad? And then you look at The Boys and you're like, well, what if Superman was bad? You'd have Homelander. So that's pretty fantastic, and I think that they should really spend more time on him, because if I had one drawing or art or penciling gig, ink gig, I would love it to be with Hyperion, because he's underused, undervalued, and it would be amazing. And I hope you can see that too. One character that I've always had a fascination with, it's Cain Marko, the Juggernaut, the unstoppable Juggernaut. There's something so odd and intimidating about his whole costume and that kind of bold red dome thing on his head, which he wears, in case you don't know. He needs to protect himself against his uncle, Professor Rexx. Professor Rexx can easily tap into anybody's head and their brain and basically do anything with them, such as the things that he did with Jean Grey to make sure that the Phoenix is pushed so back in her brain that she doesn't even remember it. So that is a little bit crooked for Professor Xavier. But the real truth, though, is that the mask stops Professor Rexx from getting in his head. Now, he's not a mutant. He found a gem called through the deity of Cyttorak. I can't exactly remember. But that turned him into the Juggernaut. Nothing can stop the Juggernaut. He's got superhuman strength and durability. He's virtually immune to most physical attacks. The big helmet is basically to fight off Professor Rexx, and I guess, who knows, Jean Grey, who knows, Scarlet Witch. But that keeps him super powered, and as time goes on, he gets more and more overpowered, and I love it. Cain Marko was a fascinating guy, like that. Not a smart guy, but who can really stop a man that can't be stopped? I know that there's issues of comics which will have or have had Juggernaut versus Blob. Love to watch that, but the fact of the matter, though, is that Juggernaut would easily win against the Blob, because that's pretty fantastic. And what else can you really say about Juggernaut? The guy's just a beast. In terms of the movies, the first appearances in the films with Juggernaut, the guy's wearing this half helmet that's kind of like gray. That's not the actor's fault, but it just looks stupid. But then in Deadpool 2, Juggernaut had the proper round helmet thing, and that was awesome. I absolutely love that. I wish they just make a comic book called Juggernaut or Unstoppable Juggernaut, because that would be fascinating.
Now,
because trust me,
not to
that
get
guy is
too
fascinating.
redundant,
The
but
guy
I'm gonna
just
bring
looks
up Red Hulk.
menacing. So the question
What
is,
was his
what would
name?
happen if
General
Superman
Roxx
was to fight
And now,
Juggernaut?
After all these years, now he's a
Well,
Hulk, but
I
he's
think
red.
that
and
we
he's
can all say
burning.
that he says
He like sets off.
they
like,
say he's unstoppable.
fire and burning.
The issue is
I don't
that
even take
Superman
this character seriously at
could
all.
fly
and
at
if
him
it offends you, well,
at
that's
like
life.
10,000
But
miles
I just
per
kinda
second,
find General
and then
Ross
knock off his
just
helmet,
becoming Red Hulk,
all
and,
within
with
20
the flames
seconds
and
and
Juggernaut.
stuff, and
Really
now
could
he's
do
also
whole
a
lot.
Hulk.
Because
I hate
unfortunately he is
derivative
unstoppable,
characters.
but
If you look at one of my
Superman
last
is the most
videos that I did,
unstoppable.
Yeah,
I said that I don't like having derivative
leaving
characters.
out people who have
Don't make a
mental
Red Hulk.
powers or space powers,
Make a different
or
character
Silver
make him
Surfer
strong
type powers,
and red.
or Galactus,
And then read a
who eats
backstory.
planets.
Not asking
That's
a lot
not
there.
really what we're talking
Make
about
a
here.
new
We're talking
muscular
about more or less
character,
surface
colored
level
red,
and sky level
and he
threats
flames
and
a bunch.
Just like
and call
when
him, I don't
Superman
know,
fought Doomsday.
Flamethrower,
Or it took
General
but
Flame.
It
But
took
don't
place
tie
on
this
city
into Hulk.
streets.
Hulk didn't ask for
City
this
streets,
garbage.
more or less.
It's awful.
And I'm sure they punch each other into
and
space
some of you
at some
will
point.
obviously say,
But
it's like,
that's
well,
really
you know,
not
it's
the
cool.
whole point,
It's totally
though.
cool. It isn't
The point
cool.
is this:
It's not
Superman
good at all.
can take Juggernaut.
Like, okay, what's
That's
next?
a fact.
Blue Hulk, and he makes everything freezing? Or what's next after that? Orange Hulk. He makes everything taste sweet. I don't know. Anyway, point being, stop exploiting great characters. Just like with Wolverine's amazing. I had a Wolverine poster in front of my bedroom when I was like 5 or 6 years old, and nobody even knew who he was. Like, nobody. And now you have like Dakin and X-23, and I just don't believe that we need that. It's just nonsense. Just make new characters. Hold on a sec. I'm gonna say it better. Make new fucking characters. Stop ripping off shit. Just make new shit. Anyway, sorry. I had to lash out there. What do we have after that? If you've been reading comic books for even like a limited amount of time, at some point you might have been reading X Factor or X-Men about a character called Strong Guy. And Strong Guy, guess how strong Guy is? He's really strong because he's called Strong Guy. Now I'm going to tell you what his weakness is, because it's brutal. A heart condition. As a side effect of his powers, his real name is Guido. He possesses a bad heart that gives him the problem in the past, including a serious heart attack that left him in a coma for several weeks. Woo! Guido can only absorb so much kinetic energy before his heart begins to weaken. He currently has a pacemaker that has greatly improved his heart. What are they talking about here? This has to be some like garbage that they made up in the late 90s, and they're like, how can we make this guy be like edgy? Oh yeah, give him a heart condition. He also watched his parents die. He's hold on a second. Have you ever heard of a superhero named Strong Guy? Because if you've been reading comics for a long time, there's a chance that you've still never heard of a mutant named Strong Guy. You see, when you look at the power grid, when you can actually just look at this online, his intelligence is a 3, so he's dumb as a fucking brick shithouse. His strength is a 7, but the average is a 6, so he's not actually extra strong. Speed is a 2. How the F does this guy even get to the bathroom? He has to dump when his speed is a 2. He's probably in, I don't know. Depends. Durability is a 4. That's also very, very low. Energy projections, a 1. If you have energy projection that's a 1, that's, as I'd say, clinically diagnosed as going to the bathroom. That's how much you can possibly do with your body. Energy projection at a 1. So he can't do anything, but they talk about that in his biography. Fighting skills, it's a 4. Wow. Way to market this guy. He is a piece of crap. So supposedly his powers are kinetic energy absorption, but it's listed as being very low. Superhuman strength, it's a 7. Okay, fine, I'll call that good. Superhuman durability, yeah, sure, I guess. I don't know. He's like a mutant and he's big, but he's dumb as hell. Get this. It says his abilities are 1. Comedy. He is a multi-talented actor and stand-up comedian. That's why I buy comic books, because I want a guy who's gonna be average at stand-up comedy. Next abilities. Street fighting. He's also a formidable hand-to-hand combatant, often using street fighting techniques. And when he gets angry, he gets stronger. I think that goes with every human. When you're angry, you'll probably fight better. Weaknesses, are you ready? Here we go. Heart condition. I wasn't expecting that. As a side effect of his powers, his name's Guido. So Guido possesses a bad heart that's given him problems. Now, anybody who reads X-Men knows who Forge is. The guy's got like no legs, but he's like a brilliant engineer of creating science tech. So Forge from X-Men made him a pacemaker that's really good. I've never read a person talking about comics and being like, I hope that guy had a pacemaker. I hope he had a pacemaker. They're so desperate to make this guy not boring that they're making him extra boring. Oh, get this too. Guido describes himself as a lapsed Catholic. Lapsed Catholic. His breakdown is that he's a lapsed Catholic. What? So if Strong Guy was to fight Superman, who would win? Superman, who can shoot lasers out of his eyeballs, he can breathe frozen air, he can fly, he can basically kind of do everything, and he's virtually immortal. And then there's Strong Guy, who has powers such as being strong. He can absorb energy, but he has to get rid of it right away and shoot it somewhere, or else he'll die. And he has a pacemaker developed by Forge from X-Men. So it kind of looks like Strong Guy's not so strong. Superman, I think, would just like throw him at the sun and the guy would just dissipate. Because I don't know how you can be Strong Guy and have a heart condition and fight anybody, because you might have a heart attack that day. Oh, but whatever. That guy's boring. Next. One more top tier talent when it comes to having strong men, who scrap it out a lot like Superman. It's Sentry. And I really like Sentry because he seems to be his own demon in the most extreme way. Sentry is a hero, and he fights for good. But in the back of his head, something happened. There's an evil lurking within him. It's called the Void. So half the time he's fighting against himself to fight the Void. And he is like an Omega level threat. High level. Just like Superman.
and just like Hyperion. So the question is this, it's like, wouldn't it be cool if we could have like a multiple crossover with all of these great heroes and maybe a hero who's also a villain, because Sentry is the Void and the Void is Sentry. He is definitely pretty impressive when it comes to creating character, and he has a distinct look, and he's a lot of fun to read. And I guess we all have demons in the back of our heads, so what's wrong with him having demons in the back of his head too? Except for the fact that he can literally have the power of 1,000 suns. So that's how powerful this guy is. This guy's not a guy who really even do street fights or whatnot. Not that Superman does street fights, it's just the fact that, you get guys like villains like Rhino, who's really strong, but he can't fly. He can't do much at all, but he's just a powerhouse. But Sentry, though, is like that space level guy, just like Superman. So I really like Sentry, and I look forward to getting some new books now and seeing what they got to say about him.
The last,
because I actually find him pretty fascinating. So that's it. Sentry is
more or less,
definitely
Superman,
a character to watch.
Hero is literally never talked about, and it's kind of odd too, because it's a pretty powerful person. We all know Scott Summers is Cyclops. He can shoot lasers out of his eyeballs. And we all know that Alex Summers can shoot telekinetic beams or whatever, or energy out of his chest and blow things up. They have a younger brother who I've never really been able to find in any publications, but I kind of want to check it out. His name's Gabriel Summers. This guy's like an Omega level threat. The guy can fly in space and do all this crazy stuff. Very powerful. Very connected. He was mentioned years before when they were talking about Cyclops, but they'd never built up the story. They kind of left it there waiting in the wings until they fully brought him out in 2006. And that's pretty cool. What did it say? After Ed Brubaker left the Uncanny X-Men, Christopher Yost took over as the writer for the X-Men Emperor Vulcan miniseries. See, he got a miniseries. Blob has been around for 60, 70 years, and he can't get a miniseries. But Gabriel Summers, also known as Vulcan, had one. And I want to track that one down for sure. That would just be so cool to have just like a 3-person group called The Summer. And The Summer would have Alexander and Scott and Gabriel, the Summers brothers. Just like Kevin Bacon, the actor, has, there's the Bacon brothers. We could have the Summers brothers. That would be awesome, if you ask me. Plus, also, I think that Vulcan would lay waste to people. That guy has endless top powers, which have never really been kind of described in detail. But this guy can do all of the things like shoot energy, fly, be in space. His hands are always smoking from burning something to death. And it's cool though, but it's just odd how since 2006 nobody's really talking about him, because I think that he seems pretty darn cool. I don't know, but let me know in the notes if you think so. However, the real truth is that when it comes to Vulcan fighting Superman, I'm pretty damn sure Superman would win. He is an alien. He seems to have endless stamina. To even see him have blood drawn from him is almost impossible. Except in Doomsday, who killed Superman. So it would be really cool though to see Vulcan team up with or fight Superman. But Superman always wins on top. Just not because he's just a fan favorite, it's because he's always proven to have a high moral ground. Yeah, so that would be pretty fantastic. So look out for some books on Vulcan or the Summers brothers. You know, Alex and Scott and Gabriel. I think that would be really cool. So just to do a quick rundown about what I discussed, I talked about Superman versus She-Hulk. Superman wins. I talked about the Blob versus Superman. Superman wins. I talked about Colossus versus Superman. Superman wins. I talked about Hulk versus Superman. That'll be a lot like fighting Doomsday, but Superman still, because he can fly, Superman would win against Hulk. Then we're going to talk about Hyperion, who is designed to be a perfect villain against Superman. I haven't seen enough to say it for sure, but I'm pretty darn sure that Hyperion would not win. Superman would take that. Juggernaut, he's kind of like grounded all the time, and Superman can hit hard at like 10,000 miles per minute or second. Who knows? But Juggernaut would get leveled. He says he's unstoppable. Superman can stop him. Red Hulk, that's just stupid. Please throw him in the garbage. Don't want to see it. Scar, I'm sure he'll make a good movie because he has no personality. So all they really have to do is create one, and then he'd be interesting. So that'd be a good movie. But still, Scar is just a reduced version of Hulk, and who the hell knows? Who cares? Sentry is definitely a guy that I'd love to fight Superman. I'd love to watch that for sure. He is definitely strong, and he's also a mental case who has in the back of his brain the void, which makes him a bad guy as much as a good guy. So the guy's half the time fighting himself, which is not that strange because if you think about Moon Knight's usually fighting Moon Knight because both of different Moon Knight characters, none of them know who runs that show. So it's pretty fascinating. So I would love to see more Moon Knight. The show was alright too. I didn't mind it. Then we got Strong Guy. Strong Guy has a pacemaker. He's got a pacemaker, and if he absorbs energy, he has to spray it out super fast or else he'll die, which makes him not only dangerous, it's just stupid. Like, yeah, like honestly, like it's just whack. And then of course, lastly, I like Vulcan, the youngest brother of Scott and Alex Summers. That would be fantastic. I'd love to like see just like a 6-issue little breakdown comic, you know. Please like, comment, and subscribe.